DTN's Todd Hultman is our corn and soybean market analyst this week. Since the U.S. Department of Agriculture released its January crop report on the 12th, soybean prices have surged. Aided by those estimates and heavy rains in Argentina, March futures added 63 cents in 4 sessions. The U.S. and Brazil are by far the largest producers of soybeans in the world. Argentina sits in third. Its output this season is expected to be less than half of what the U.S. recently grew. The USDA expects Brazil will shatter its previous record for soybean production by nearly 250,000 bushels, an amount close to what North Dakota grew in 2016, for a total projected to be about 89% of the 2016 U.S. harvest. We talked with Todd at DTN's offices in Omaha Wednesday afternoon and started by asking what was happening with the soybean rally.
Oh boy, it's been quite a week, and really it started off with the January 12th WASDE report that kicked it off. I think once the market settled on a final production estimate for soybeans, we could kind of put that in the rearview mirror. And then of course since then we've had rain problems in Argentina this weekend, so it's spurred a good about 60-cent move in our soybean markets.
Are we believing the reductions that's being discussed right now in Argentina?
Overall, yes. I think we're probably going to see a production reduction there of about 5 to 10%, Jeff. And I do see other market clues that I think support the idea that commercials have been very eager to buy, especially the new crop soybeans and meal since this has happened. I'm not saying that the market hasn't overreacted, and this isn't a good opportunity to take advantage of, though.
Can you describe those areas that you think could be trouble spots down there in Argentina?
Well, it sounds like the north central region has had just too much rain, and even before this weekend we had reports of too much rain in those areas and concerns about flooding. Southern Argentina, on the other hand, has been dry, and their forecast continues to be dry. So you put that mishmash of things all together, and 5 to 10% reduction sounds pretty reasonable.
As we talk on Wednesday, it was another good day in the markets. How long can this thing hang on, bearing in mind we have 2 more market days before this airs?
Okay. That's tough. I tend to think this soybean rally might be getting a little frothy at this point, to be honest, and have other concerns later in the year about soybeans that we'll probably touch on. On corn, that seems to be a little more stable market. They haven't been as excited by this news. And typically, corn prices do fairly well from the first of the year to about 1st of June.
With basis levels where they are, is this an opportunity to get some cash soybean sales out of the way?
I think it is. The basis is nothing to brag about. We have seen a little improvement since August. It's been very slight. But the cash soybean prices themselves, and corn for that matter, are both at 6-month highs. I think, especially for soybeans, that's a pretty decent opportunity this early in the year with so much risk ahead of us.
You wrote this week for DTN about how the USDA projects its corn price and what that might mean for whether or not it comes true. Can you describe that for me?
Yeah, it was a fun little twist that I had. USDA, of course, puts out their price estimates in every WASDE report, and the January one in particular is of interest to me because they've got the production number settled. So they're just looking at demand for the remaining 8 months of the year. Well, the history of this report is that those estimates, they can be good and last throughout the year, but lots of times there's unexpected surprises that happen. And we can actually use that range as a technical indicator of a breakout, which helps alert us to any surprise. So right now, USDA is looking for 310 to 370 on the cash corn price. We're sitting about 330 as a national average. We're somewhat in the middle of that. But if corn got up to around 375 or so, you'd have to start wondering, is there something unusual happening, and is this a bullish change?
What do you think about the export market right now? Is it to the point where we're going to start to see that seasonal slowdown in both corn and soybeans?
In both corn and soybeans. Corn actually continues to have an advantage over Brazil's prices, about 25 cents a bushel. That should continue until about June is the way the typical pattern goes. For soybeans, Brazil's exports usually start to pick up in February. And so if their harvest season goes well, and it does, and the trucker strikes don't get too serious that we hear about every year, we should start to see increased pressure from Brazil's soybean exports. And those prices of U.S. and Brazil have come together much tighter just in the last few weeks.
Anticipate a big export number from Brazil with the amount of soybeans that they're going to produce this year?
Yes, but I want to keep it in light, Jeff, that the world demand, and especially from China, is even bigger than Brazil can supply. So here we have a potential trade war coming up with China. That's going to be a big deal for our soybean markets, and we can see some rough days ahead. But Brazil is basically going to own the export market from about February to August. But their supplies are going to run pretty low in August, USDA is estimating right now, even with the big harvest that we're anticipating. So once we get to September, China has to come back to the US, and that's when the negotiations should help tip our way.
Those trade problems that you allude to, is that part of the thing where China is maybe raising import taxes on US DDGs and ethanol?
You know, yeah, we were talking a little bit before. I don't quite understand China's eagerness to get into the ethanol market long term. It just doesn't seem to fit where they aren't really meeting their own food demands primarily in the first place. I do see it that these are perhaps preemptive bargaining chips in what they see as a coming tough trade negotiation with a new president.